Good day, and welcome to Mental Health and You. I'm your host, Cynthia Timms. What is freedom to you? The road to freedom for many people, for many of us, can be long and winding, can be bumpy and full of a lot of hardships, but can also be joyous on the way. Because on that road, perhaps you're hopefully learning about yourself. You're learning, and with knowledge comes freedom. My guest today is someone who knows a lot about knowledge. He spent most of his life about our knowledge as a people specifically, and our role and our place in it, our glorious place in it. He spent most of his life learning, a dispenser of knowledge, he calls himself. And a fellow host at Bronxnet. I welcome to Mental Health and You, Robert E Stanley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for being part of Mental Health and You. You know, you call yourself a dispenser of knowledge. And I call this show also in reference to knowledge freedom, because I think freedom and knowledge goes hand in hand. You know, a lot of people lately, a lot of us, we're living in some anxious times. You know, we're trying to learn more about ourselves. We're trying to feel better about ourselves in the midst of so much. So be that as it may, the question, what does knowledge and freedom mean to you, in particular when it comes to your learning?
Well, I see that the more you read and more you study, it gives you a deeper understanding of what's going on around you. So that's what I've been doing over probably maybe like, I say about 67 years. I'm 74 now. And I was able to read ever since I was 6. So I always was reading. Always was reading. And I see that more you learn or more you read, it seems like less you know. Like, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. So I always be reading because it makes you understand what's going on around you. That's why I read a lot.
I know you're a history buff, particularly when it comes to our history, people of color from all over the world. When you learn something, what does it make you feel like?
But it does really adds on more to the repertoire of my mind. And lately I've been trying to get into global geopolitics to see how one country relates to another, like how would China affect America, how would Brazil affect Japan. So I've been trying to, as they say, step up my game. So I've been trying to get, do a lot of reading on, geometric politics, geo-world politics.
You know, that's you said something there. And to that point, it just reminds me how connected we all are, you know, culturally, spiritually, climate-wise. You know, what affects us in the Bronx affects somebody else in another part of the country, in another part of the world. You know, you can educate yourself in so many ways. So much is education. And as I said before, I think with education comes freedom. So can you speak more about that? What you call it, global?
Global politics.
So speak more about that. I mean, I tried to touch on it, but with your understanding, how can you educate us?
Okay, like you say, like how Japan interact with Brazil, how Brazil would interact with Cuba, how America would interact with Australia. So that's what I've been trying to put them all together. So that's what I've been doing lately, trying to study the different political systems and the different, not cultures, but the political systems. And the monetary systems also. I've been doing that lately. That's what I've been trying to do. So, I know a lot about my history, but you can always learn more.
Right.
More you study, more, it's not more you study, more you know. When you study for a period of time, a period of years, you see it seems it's the other way around. Like, more you study, less you know. There's so much more to just, comprehending, because in my good times, and I had the time to do it, I would put in something like 15, 17, 18 hours a day, like 15 hours a day just studying.
And who put that love of knowledge into your brain, your system? I mean, you wasn't born. I mean, back in the day, You say you're 73 years old?
74 now.
74? So where did it start? Where did it come from?
Well, in my household was that's what we did. My father was reading, my mother was reading, my brother was reading. My father, he was able to take a book like this, which I've seen him do, read the whole entire book to the back page. Take this book again, read it all the way backwards. Take this book again, read upside down. So I came from a house where everybody was reading. My mother was reading, my father was reading, my brother was, he didn't read that much, but he had to be read. But we did a lot of, my mother's house was, I always say, I never went to go to heaven, I've been there because everything was quiet, everything was in place, everything was orderly.
What was it about them that said, I want my children to know their history?
Well, for my father, it was, I guess it was a great accomplishment in his time, because my father was born, it was 1898. And he's one of the few blacks that probably graduated from high school. And he just didn't graduate from high school, he graduated from college too. He had 2 years of college. So he used to tell me when he was in the service, he made the highest like a black person could make officer during that time, a chief petty officer.
Yes.
And he said they would come around him and look at him like he was like strange. A black guy went to college, a black guy from high school.
Yes.
So I grew up in a household where that's what you did. You read and studied all the time. My mother used to do the same thing. So, you know, I remember my mother used to, it wasn't that she was dyslexic. It was just a hobby. She would write things backwards. She'd read things backwards too. She would be in the kitchen reading. My father would be in the living room reading. I would be in the foyer-way reading. My brother would probably be reading. He didn't read as much, but I came out of a household where we did a lot of reading. And where I wound up getting like a lot of books, I think my brother's, he must have got like maybe 18 or 21. And he decided he was growing and he moved away, up the block, not far. And that's when rent was very cheap. I think rent was like $10 for a room. And this lady was there, she was a school teacher. And she had left a lot of books.
Because I was going to ask you, where did all these books come from? The school, library, did people leave them places?
I'll get to that for you, but first I'll tell you about the lady that left the books. She left, she didn't know where to go. She had to leave the room or something. And she asked my brother, can you hold these books for her? And it was on all subjects. I was just read them up. And anything word I didn't know, I would look it up. You know, the dictionaries would be like my best friend. I was young, I was like 16 or 17. I'm probably the only young guy going to the, I call it a discotheque, now it's called a club.
Yeah.
I was probably the only person to go to a club or a discotheque with a dictionary. So I was constantly looking at words. So all them books that was there, and I was just start reading them. I was able to read since I was 6. Now math I'm not good at. Numbers, technology, reading, because I grew up in a house where that's what we did. My mother had you reading, you had to write, you had to recite, and also, you had to learn the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, all that. My mother made you do that.
So were you self-schooled? I mean, were you schooled at home? Did you go to a public school?
Well, okay. In school...
How was this further, your education further along?
Well, I'll explain that to you.
Expanded, I should say.
Okay. In school, I read Dick and Jane and...
What school was this?
Oh, PS 146 in the Bronx.
Okay.
Right?
Elementary school?
Yeah. In school, I read Dick and Jane and whatever they told you home. But when I was in my house, I read books on science, politics, all stuff like that.
When you gained this knowledge, as you were reading, how did it make you you didn't read much about mental health, but it seems to me that as you were reading more, you were feeling better about yourself. Well, what were you? Were you feeling a certain way? How I should put words in your mouth. How were you starting to feel as you were gaining all this knowledge?
I'm just learning something. I didn't do anything. I didn't.
So you didn't. So it wasn't like, oh wow, I'm feeling better about myself.
No, I never had that problem about like I felt like inferior or another race was more advanced than me or more superior. I never had that type of attitude. So I would just read for knowledge and stuff like that. So I was reading books like on, I said, what is a fallopian tube? I would look it up. I read all kinds of books on almost every subject.
Another reason why,
And
I asked you that, because considering this is mental health in you, we talk about, in the show, we talked about freedom. We talked about how knowledge, particularly, can make you feel better. I feel that just by listening to you, you were very fortunate to grow up in a household where book reading was encouraged, where you had parents, two parents who encouraged you to read. Then you went to school and I dare say did you question the teacher?
well, maybe I should tell you when I was in the fourth or fifth grade.
Okay.
Seemed like everything the teacher would talk about, I basically knew. My hand would go up like this all the time, all the time, all the time.
Oh, you were one of
all the
those
time,
kids, okay.
All the time. So then after all, the kids said, look,
Yeah.
man, you already know that. Just stand.
Yes.
You had to stand up. You had to raise your hand.
Yeah.
And be recognized by the teacher and stand up. So that's about my
And this is
child.
about how old are you? About elementary school?
Yeah.
Okay.
And after a while, the kids said, look, you always know all the answers. Just stay standing up. So after a while, the teacher wouldn't even call me. He said, we already know you know the answers. And so, because I came out, like I said, we studied all the time. So everything he was teaching me, I learned on my own. I studied. I had thousands of books. I read close to 6,000 books. And I got, time I got to about 45, I stopped counting.
Did you ever join the library, a public
Well,
library, the school library? I know you had a home library, but what did the public library or the school library mean?
Okay, well, I'll get to that to you. Then during this time, I guess I was about fifth or sixth grade, fifth grade. So like now people have like they can sit home and if it's summertime, this was summer, they put on the air conditioning. During that time, there was no air conditioning. There was no fans, no portable fans. The only people that had fans was the big industrial fans. And sometimes a guy would, you see him taking one home. And now you got DVDs to keep you company and cell phones and games. There's nothing to do during them days. So I remember I went to the library.
So I gather you had no radio or TV set in your house?
Okay, well,
I know you had a bookcase, Robert.
Do you want me jump to that or just finish one story at a time?
No, I'm just trying to paint a picture. Okay.
Now, since you mentioned library, right?
You had an encyclopedia?
Oh, we had a lot of them. We had some.
We may have to explain to people what encyclopedia is.
Well, the encyclopedia is a book that has a lot of information in it.
Yes.
And I'll just say that stay on one thing at a time. Okay. Now getting back to the library.
Okay.
So I went to the library one day. Like I said, it was in all these fans and air conditioning and stuff like that. So all the staff was sitting outside because there was nobody in the library.
Okay.
So I guess she was a librarian. I came into the library and she said to me like, "There's nobody here. Why are you here?" She started putting her, "Why are you here? There's nobody here. I would even let them go home, but I can't. Everybody's outside. The staff's outside. Why are you here?" I said, "To read the books." Like I said, it was now you have air conditioning and games to play. So the library was like astonished. "Why are you at the library? There's nobody here, only us." And I'm letting them sit outside because it's hot. But I was in the library reading. I was about fifth grade or sixth grade. Now, another thing with the library, he asked me something else about the library. Now, this is when I was like older. I had a friend that used to box. So he used to go to up to Bronxnet Community College, to practice running around on the track. So I have to watch him run around. Okay, all right. So I asked him, "They have a library over here?" He said, "Yeah, right over there, Tech 2. I went downstairs to Tech 2, and I used to study in that library for 16 years, just studying on my own, just studying. And the reason why I had joined the school, because I was noticing like the staff would like hide the books that I would use, hide the books. So I said to myself, if I join the school, then I have access to the books. So that's how I wound up, going to Bronxnet Community College.
Okay.
And then from there, I guess I was interested.
So you had a library card and everything?
Yeah, the reason why I said I joined it, I wasn't really interested in learning by the teachers. I was interested in the books. And like I would take the papers, I would take like a book I'm reading, and put like a little teeny piece of paper in it. Nobody can see it. I just see them, they'd be down there like that, looking, and move the books, make my life hard. So I joined the library, I joined the school.
Okay.
So I have access, I have a library card to the
Right.
books. So I was going there 16 years to study on my own. Just on my own, just, because I like books.
Okay. Speaking of books, I see you got some books here, but the top book,
Well, always
World's Great Men of Color.
You always,
What is that? I mean, I know what it is, but who in there is really popping out to you over the years like, wow?
who really pops out to me is Maceo,
Maceo.
right? Now, we hear Maceo in the song with James Brown, but
Yes.
that's not who the very much he always is. He was called a centurion. He would like charge, like if,
Can we like
Sure.
can we see this book?
sure.
Can we get a close up of this? You don't mind? Okay.
I'm bringing more.
No, as you talk about Maceo.
Well,
There we go. Maceo. Talk about
Yeah,
Maceo.
he was called a centurion for freedom, and he was fighting for Cuba,
Okay.
and he would tell his men, he said, "There's no way that you were supposed to retreat," and be like he'd be outnumbered, and he would charge maybe 50 guys and kill them with his sword, kill them and shoot them, and say, shows them not to retreat. So I remember at one time I was reading the book that he was he would travel around the world by himself to raise money. So he came to New York and he came to see like a opera or something like that, and he was recognized. And they said, "Oh, shit, that Maceo." Somebody pointed him out. So the authorities captured him.
About what time?
This is like the 17th, 18th century. I remember that time date. And they had captured him. And then he was some kind of way, like he was a fierce person. He was able to escape. And he had found out that one of the boat mates, had told on him for $25,000. And he was able to free and capture the three important people, the captain and two other persons. He tied them up against the pipe or the wall and shot them, and had them people take the boat back somewhere else. He was all around the world raising money for the cause.
Wow.
And that's where he got the term Viva Cuba and stuff. It came from him. He was fatally wounded, and it was a soldier holding over him. He said, "Are you Cuban or Spanish?" And the guy said, "Spanish," and plunged the sword into his throat.
Wow.
And that was the last words that he was saying. I find them extraordinary and stuff like that. There's a few other ones too.
I know this is called World's Great Men of Color.
Yeah, women in there too.
But in these times, is there any women off the cuff that struck you in your studies?
Well, not in this. Let me see. Yeah,
I mean, as you find, I want to share. And I've
well,
shared.
Ida B. Wells, she's not in the
Oh my
book.
God! You said something there, Robert.
Yeah.
Ida B. Wells is one of my heroes.
Yeah, she's a.
Ida B. Wells, one of the founders of the NAACP,
a fearless woman too.
a fearless woman. She was an anti-lynching activist, a newspaper reporter. Went to Chicago because she fled to Chicago because she was ran out of Memphis after she wrote about lynching back in the day because two of her friends were lynched. Two businessmen were lynched. So she had to leave her home in Memphis and move to Chicago. And I mean, I remember when I was in Chicago, I mean, as we start to wrap up soon, but I remember when I was in Chicago maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, and I saw Ida B. Wells Boulevard, and I thought about that, so.
She was a school teacher too, wasn't she?
Yes, absolutely, she was a school teacher. So, you talk about, we call this show The Road to Freedom, but for me, it's like learning about these women, as well as these men. I see myself in them. And at the heart of, I guess what I'm trying to do, Robert, with this is I want people to be able to see themselves in these people, the greatness. They sacrificed a lot, but but they gave a lot, and they gave us history. Whether it's Ida B. Wells, whether it was Maceo. I talked about Shirley Chisholm or Shirley Chisholm.
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Oh my goodness, Franny Lou Hamer.
She was beat so bad.
One,
And she just kept going, just kept going.
One
and
of
these
20.
are fearless women, you know. These
Yes.
are women that a person can get courage from to see their struggle. Now, we think our struggle is hard. Just imagine their struggle.
And I talked about
You know
that.
what I'm
I've
saying?
talked that she's one of my heroes. One of 20 children. She never went further than the 4th grade in Mississippi. But she said that voting was her passport to freedom. She recognized back then when she went to a rally. She went to with the SNCC back in the
Right.
60s. That there was something more for her life, and she recognized that. And she was a fearless fighter. She was an activist. She was a singer. She used her voice, her words of singing, to lift up a people. You know, and so I just wanted to share. And when I read about these people and learned about them, you know, the way you learned about people in your books, that I felt I felt like a emancipation. I felt like a freedom come over me. And I want to leave the audience with this, that with knowledge comes freedom. When you can pick up a book, I know there's forces out there still will like to erase our history, but they can't do that. Books still exist. Our library still exists. We can do book clubs. You know, we can have, right, like your parents did, support groups. You know, in the coming days, we may need that more, but we always need that, because with freedom, with knowledge comes, with knowledge and freedom comes, with freedom comes knowledge, and knowledge comes freedom. They're hand in hand. I talked about, as we start to wrap up, Shirley Chisholm.
Yeah, she ran for president. She
Yes.
set the way to show that it could be done.
It can be done.
You know, she, was it from
Yes.
Brooklyn to New York?
So yes,
Caribbean descent, but a Brooklynite.
yes,
So she set the way to show that this can be done.
yes,
Never mind just thinking about voting or trying to get a good job. You can become a head person in the United States, not just as a man,
yes.
but even as a woman and as a black woman.
Yes, and I
So-
want people to recognize that, yes, what is possible. I want, you know, when you read, you know, it's, as I said, there's an emancipation, there's an awakening that takes place. And we learn it. You talked about some of the people, Maceo and other people. We talked about Ida B. Wells. We talked about Fannie Lou Hamer. We talked about Shirley Chisholm. And we can just go on and on. Ella Baker. Rosa Parks, you know, we're going to have
Me
have you
personally,
back.
what I like to do,
What?
I like to start from antiquity
Yes.
and just go through different people and all through antiquity. I want to try to find out but she wasn't black though. The woman invented pants.
Who was
I
that?
forgot her name.
Who
read
invented
about-
pants?
She invented pants. She was
wow.
right.
You talking about a radical
Yeah, she
invention
was,
back then?
Yeah. Okay, I read about it. I don't remember her name. She was.
You know, there's a book of inventions, you know, from the ironing board to pants to so many
This was
other
a woman
things.
of color, but she was an
Yes.
African though.
Yes.
But I like to, I like to read and study all the time. I love reading and studying. I like learning.
So do I. I mean, and I enjoy having you on. I enjoy, you know, because you always bring it. You always come with such knowledge. You always you always bring something to the table.
I have lots more information I have bought, but I thought it was going to be out.
Yes.
I said, hey,
Listen,
this is what she wanted. I better bring some
yes.
more. I mean,
yes, I'm
you know.
glad. I'm glad. What would you leave to those to that child who seeking knowledge? Where do you tell them to start?
Well, I would tell them to try to get books because the internet, it tells you stuff. A lot of stuff, they don't lie. They just don't give you all the information. Now,
Well, some of it doesn't lie. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that, you know, you got to question. Right?
okay, we won't
It
we won't to that point.
We talk about,
The
it
best thing
depends
to
on
get-
the source of
Right.
your
The best thing
information.
to get is books. And the last free speech is on CDs.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the internet and Google and the other mass medias, they can be controlled. But the last free speech is on CDs. You know, the last free
CDs, you
Yeah.
may have to explain people what that
Oh,
is. Like
CD
it's like an encyclopedia.
CDP was like a little disc you like this, and it's silver, and you play it in a little machine, a big machine. You know,
I remember back in the day when I used to go to the Schomburg before there was digital, and there was fish. You know, when you had to actually put gloves on when you wanted to look up something in history or go through some old papers or some old books. It was on like a fish. They call it
you mean like microfilm?
a microfilm. Yes, my bad.
You'll call
Yeah.
it fish, huh?
Yeah, well,
Well,
I think it was microfilm.
I don't know about the fish.
Yes, maybe I'm
microfilm.
thinking
Okay.
about something else. But working for the filmmaker back then, Bill Miles, one of the great documentary filmmakers of our time. I remember Harlem and 125th
You familiar
Street.
with Oscar Machu?
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about history. Oh, my goodness.
He's
Yes.
the one that came up with
Yes.
outdoor filming because they didn't have the money. They didn't have no huge studios. So he came up with the idea you film outside. That's where they got it from.
Oh, yes.
Oscar Machu.
He did it all. He was a filmmaker, a writer, a distributor. Yes, he's required study in anywhere. He's required study. Robert, I want to thank you so much for being a part of Mental Health and You.
Okay.
You know, the road to freedom goes by way of study. The road to freedom goes by way of knowledge.
And examine what you read.
Yes, examine what you read.
Prepare.
Yes, that is so important, and the source of where it comes from. But once you learn it, it's yours. No one can take it from you. So, Robert, I want to thank you again, Robert E Stanley. What you call yourself? Oh, you're so humble. A dispenser of knowledge. Okay. A dispenser of knowledge. That's what you call yourself, and you're sticking to it. He is also a host on Bronxnet, African History.
Past, present, and thought.
Past, present, and thought. That can be found on Bronxnet. And I want to thank the staff of Bronxnet for this platform. And I want to thank you, the viewers, for being a part of Mental Health and You. Now go take care of yourself. Gain some knowledge. You know, we're great people. And the best is yet to come. For Mental Health and You, thank you so much, beloved.
And thank
Go
you too
well.
for having me.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. See you again.